"Dad, someone fell in there." That's the sentence that changed everything. Not the words themselves. Leo said a lot of things. He was 6 years old, and 6-year-olds pointed out a lot of things. But the way he said it, that quiet observation that made Marcus look up from the equipment manual on his phone, that was the moment the world shifted on its axis. The business class lounge at the airport was the kind of place where nothing was supposed to go wrong. Soft lighting, chilled air, every surface polished to a quiet perfection. The kind of space designed to make you forget the chaos of the terminal below. Chaos. That's what the main floor was. Families yelling at children. Children redistributing crackers across 20 square feet of carpet. People in a hurry, always in a hurry, never satisfied with where they were or when they'd get where they were going. Up on the second level, everything was different. Sophia Hart sat near the window with her spine straight and her fingers scrolling through contract terms on her tablet. She had not blinked in 47 minutes. She had learned a long time ago that blinks were where errors lived. Errors meant mistakes. Mistakes meant failure. And Sophia Hart had never failed at anything that mattered. She was 26 years old, and the youngest chief executive in the history of Metaxas Health Systems. The company monitored patient data in real time. Hospitals, insurance companies, emergency response networks. They trusted Metaxas with information about people in their most vulnerable moments. It was serious work. Sophia treated it like a general treating war. Not with passion, but with the cold clarity of someone who understood that mistakes happened to other people, not to her. That morning, sitting in the business class lounge, she noticed something new. A tremor in her fingers. Just slight, just enough to register as data. She dismissed it the way she dismissed most inconvenient truths, through sheer force of will. Hydration. That was almost certainly what this was. She reached for her water glass and held it with great precision, the way a person does when they're concentrating very hard on appearing normal. The water did not help. The room did an almost imperceptible tilt. Everything tilted about half a degree to the left, like someone had adjusted the world while she wasn't paying attention. Sophia set the glass down with even greater precision. Her hands were starting to shake now. She could see it. She could feel it. But if nobody was looking at her, then maybe it wasn't real. The lounge attendant was refilling a coffee station. 2 men in identical navy suits were discussing something at the high table by the far wall. No one was looking at her. She was grateful for that. She pressed her heels firmly into the floor and willed the tilting to stop. It did not stop. Instead, it deepened, and with it came a warmth behind her eyes that she had never felt before. A sudden, profound conviction that something was wrong with her in a way that was not dehydration and not fatigue. Then she looked down at the main terminal floor below, through the glass partition that separated the lounge from the terminal corridor, and she saw him, a man sitting on a hard plastic seat with a small boy asleep on his shoulder, plain jacket, clean but worn at the knees. His gray jacket had a small repair at the left cuff that he had stitched himself one evening while watching cartoons with his son. He was lean and quiet in the way of someone who had long ago stopped spending energy on things that did not matter. But there was something in his stillness that caught her attention in a way she did not expect. She watched him for 3 seconds, maybe 4, and then, as if he had felt the weight of her attention the way she sometimes felt the weight of others, he looked up, directly at her, through the glass across the distance. Their eyes met. His expression did not change. He did not smile. He just looked at her the way he was looking at everything, with complete attention, with the full weight of his awareness. For just a second, Sophia felt seen, really seen, not the CEO version of her, not the controlled version, just the girl who was coming apart at the edges and trying very hard to pretend she wasn't. Then the room tilted violently. She reached for the edge of the table. The glass went first, knocked sideways by the involuntary jerk of her arm as her grip failed. It caught the edge of a small decorative plate. The sound was clean and sharp in the quiet of the lounge, crystal against porcelain. A single crack that turned every head in the room. Then Sophia went down. She did not crumple slowly. She went sideways out of the chair with a weight and finality that made the three people closest to her take a step back instead of forward. Her tablet clattered to the floor beside her. One of her earrings scattered under the low table. The lounge went completely silent for one long second. Then it filled with sound, voices, movement, the scraping of chairs. But none of the movement was coordinated and none of the voices contained instruction. A lounge attendant crossed the room at a near run, then stopped 3 feet away. Her hands pressed together in front of her chest. A security guard appeared in the doorway from the corridor, looked at Sophia on the floor, and reached for his radio. One of the navy-suited men had his phone out and was staring at it as though waiting for it to tell him what to do. A woman near the window made a sound that was not quite a word. Down on the main floor, Marcus had not heard the sound. But Leo had turned his head. And Leo said quietly, the way he said most things, "Dad, someone fell in there." Marcus looked up from the equipment manual he had been paging through on his phone. He followed Leo's line of sight. He saw Sophia on the floor. He saw the attendant frozen 3 feet away. He saw the guard with the radio. And in the time it took a typical person to register what they were seeing and begin to assess their involvement, Marcus was already moving. He did not run exactly, but he moved with a speed that was precise, rather than panicked. The speed of someone who had made a decision and was now executing it. He stood up without thinking about it. That was the kind of man Marcus Cole was. Not reckless, not heroic, just incapable of walking away when something was wrong. Leo remained standing alone in the terminal. Marcus moved through the business class lounge doors. And everything changed. He arrived at Sophia's side within 8 seconds of her hitting the ground. He dropped to his knees beside her without asking permission, without hesitation, without introducing himself. His movements were economical and certain, the movements of someone who had done this before. He checked her airway, checked her pulse, checked her pupils. His hands were steady. His voice was different from the voice he used with Leo in the terminal. It was still quiet, but it carried a tone underneath it, the tone of someone who had done this before, someone who knew what to do. "What is her name?" he asked the frozen attendant. "Sophia. Sophia Hart. Sophia," he said directly to her. His face was 6 inches from hers. "Can you hear me?" She could hear him. She could not move, but she could hear him. Her body had betrayed her. Control had abandoned her. Everything she had built, every system of discipline and self-mastery had failed her in this moment. And all she had was this stranger's voice saying something that made all the difference. "You're going to be okay. I know what to do." And in that moment, with her body not obeying her, with the room spinning with control finally stripped away, she believed him. For the first time in 26 years, she let someone else be in control. Marcus worked with meticulous precision. He positioned her body correctly. He talked through what he was doing in a calm, methodical voice that seemed to push back the chaos around them. His certainty was like a force field. It spread outward, and gradually the panic in the room quieted. The lounge attendant stood ready following his instructions. The security guard stopped reaching for his radio and instead moved to give space. One of the navy-suited men actually helped without being asked. It was Marcus's presence that changed the energy. Not his words. His presence. Sophia's eyes fluttered open. She focused on his face. 6 inches from hers. The first time they had looked at each other this close. This long. "There you are," he said gently. "You're okay. You're going to be fine. The paramedics are coming. She tried to speak. "Don't. Just breathe." Their eyes held for a moment. She saw recognition in his eyes. Not recognition that he knew her, but recognition that he knew her. That she was different from the other people in this room. That something had passed between them in the moment before everything fell apart. She saw something else too. Fear. Fear of what it meant that they had touched across a moment when she had no control, and he had known exactly what to do. The paramedics arrived. Marcus stood up without a word, stepped back. A paramedic asked if he had seen what happened, but Marcus was already moving toward the door, toward Leo, toward the exit. He did not look back. Behind him, from the floor, Sophia watched him go. Conscious enough to understand that the man who had saved her was leaving. Conscious enough to understand that he did not want her to know who he was, which made her determined to find out. The hospital room was all white, sterile, the kind of place designed to heal but not to comfort. Sophia woke to her mother sitting in a chair by the window. Margaret Hart, chairman of Metaxas Holding Group, the woman who had taught Sophia that control was love, and that love meant never showing weakness. Margaret stood when Sophia's eyes opened. 3 hours, Margaret said. Vasovagal syncope, exhaustion, your body's way of telling you something you wouldn't listen to. Who brought me? Margaret's expression did not shift. A man. Security footage shows he knew exactly what he was doing. Then find him. Sophia, find him. And Margaret did. But that is not the whole story. That is not where the obsession really began. The obsession began at 2 a.m, 3 days after the collapse, in Sophia's apartment overlooking the city, with 3 monitors showing what she could not stop watching. Security footage from the lounge, grainy but clear enough, a still frame of his face, paused at the moment of eye contact, the moment right before he turned away, the moment when she felt him see her. Search results for medical emergency response, trained male, Ohio. She had watched the 47-second clip of him working 47 times. She had memorized the way he moved, the way he prioritized, the way he treated her collapse like a problem to solve, not a crisis to panic about, just a problem, and he knew how to solve it. He was not Army. The movements were too precise, too learned in a civilian context. Paramedic or ER tech, emergency room nurse. Something in that universe. Something where you learn to be certain in moments when certainty is life. He worked somewhere. She just had to find out where. At 4:30 a.m. on a county records website for a town outside Columbus, Ohio, she found it. Marcus Cole, sole proprietor. Medical equipment diagnostics and maintenance. Address listed. His photo was not on the filing, but she had seen his face. She would find the garage. She would find him. She would find out why a man with that much training had walked away from it. Why he helped her and then disappeared. Why one moment of eye contact through a glass partition had made her question everything she knew about control and certainty. The next morning, she mentioned it casually to Margaret over breakfast. "You're thinking about the man at the airport," Margaret said. It was not a question. "Yes, he has a son." Sophia set down her coffee. "I know. He lost his wife. I know that too." Margaret studied her daughter with the expression of someone watching a carefully controlled system begin to destabilize. A man like that. Someone who trained for emergency response and then walked away from it. He walked away for a reason. I want to know what reason. That's his story to tell, not yours to uncover. Sophia looked at her mother. When the paramedics arrived, he left. He didn't stay to be thanked. He didn't want recognition. Exactly. Then why did he help at all? Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's the question, isn't it? That's the one that will keep you searching." And it was. While Sophia searched for him, he was living a life that had no room for searching. Marcus Cole was 31 years old. He worked as a technical contractor for medical equipment suppliers, diagnostics, maintenance, the kind of work that nobody thanked you for because it was supposed to be invisible. He was good at invisible. He lived in a converted two-bay garage that he had methodically organized into something functional without any particular effort at aesthetics. Testing equipment, portable diagnostic units, component drawers labeled in a system that made perfect sense. On the concrete floor near the entrance there was a large chalk circle. Inside the circle was a horse drawn in blue chalk. Inside the horse was a note in 6-year-old handwriting that said, "Good horse." That was Leo's drawing. Leo drew a lot of things. Horses mostly. Sometimes dinosaurs. Sometimes just lines that he said were fast things. But the horse was the one that stayed. Marcus kept it there because Leo drew it. Because some things matter for reasons that do not need to make sense to anyone else. The story of why Marcus did this work. Why he left emergency medicine. Why he hid in a garage. Why he was raising his son alone. Was a story about loss. 4 years ago, Marcus's wife was a paramedic. Her name was Sarah Cole. She was the kind of paramedic other paramedics talked about. The kind who could talk to anyone. Who never made mistakes. Who believed that the people she saved mattered as much as the people she couldn't save. She used to say to Marcus, "Every person I save is someone's child, someone's partner, someone's whole world, and keeping that in mind is the only way to not lose your humanity to the work." Marcus believed her. They were going to have a family. Sarah was going to keep working part-time after Leo was born. Marcus was going to be the primary caregiver. They had it all planned. It was a beautiful plan. A plan that made sense. Then Sarah got sick. It was fast. No warning. No time for training to matter. She died at 34 years old, and Marcus was left holding a 2-month-old baby, and the devastating knowledge that knowing what to do and having enough time are not the same thing. For the first year, his grandmother helped. She came to stay with them. She held Leo while Marcus learned to be a father without a wife. She held Marcus while he fell apart, and then had to put himself back together because Leo needed him to. By year 2, Marcus had stopped working in emergency medicine. He couldn't do it. Every call was Sarah. Every person he saved was a reminder of the person he couldn't save. Every moment of certainty. "I know what to do." Was shadowed by the memory of a moment when knowing what to do meant absolutely nothing. So he became invisible instead. He took a job maintaining medical equipment for small suppliers. Fair rates. Shows up when he says he will. Does not make promises he cannot keep. His clients like him without knowing much about him, which is more or less how he prefers it. He raises Leo. They have routines. They have stability. They have a life that doesn't require him to stand over other people's emergencies and pretend that his training is enough. It has worked for 4 years. But there is a cost. The cost is that he's sleeping 5 hours a night. The cost is that he wakes up at 3 in the morning thinking about Sarah. About the things she used to say. About the fact that she believed meaning came from helping people. And he couldn't do it anymore. The cost is that he's lonely in a way that he can't tell his grandmother about because she's already worried. The cost is that he's taught Leo not to ask too many questions about Mom, not to talk too much about the paramedic job, not to wonder why Dad stopped doing the work he was trained for. And the cost is that he's become very good at convincing himself that this is enough. Until the morning of the flight to Ohio. Leo asked if they could bring his grandmother a drawing of a horse. Leo had been drawing horses all week, dozens of them, each one slightly different, each one labeled with some variation of good horse. Marcus rolled up one horse drawing and put it in a protective cardboard tube in his backpack. As they sat in the terminal waiting to board, Marcus was paging through an equipment manual on his phone. But his mind was somewhere else. It was on Ohio, on his grandmother, on the fact that she was getting older and he wasn't visiting enough, on the fact that Leo was going to get older too, and Marcus was running out of time to give his son a different story about his father than the man who gave up. So when Leo pointed at the business class lounge and said, "Dad, someone fell in there," Marcus looked up, and he saw her. Not just saw her physically, but saw her, the way she was sitting, the way she was carrying the weight of control like it was her only job, the way she looked down at the terminal and locked eyes with him for 1 second. And in that second, he recognized something in her. A person who was running out of time, too. A person who was about to break. Marcus realized something in that moment. He still knew what to do. He had never actually forgotten. He had just convinced himself that forgetting was safer. He stood up. "Leo, stay here. Do not move. Where are you going?" He did not answer. He just moved. Sophia found the garage on a Tuesday afternoon. The address had been in the county records. Easy to find once you knew how to look for things people wanted to hide. The garage was exactly what she expected. Functional, methodical, invisible. No name on the building, no sign. No indication that anything important happened here. She sat in her car for 5 minutes before getting out. She had driven here in a Tesla, he would notice. When she stepped through the bay door, he was at a workbench with his back to her, focused on a circuit board under a lamp. He did not turn immediately, which told her he had heard her arrive. He just chose not to respond to it. "Thank you for what you did at the airport," she said. He continued working for 3 more seconds. Then he set down his tool and turned to face her. "That's kind of you to say, but I was doing what anyone with training would do." "You're right," she said. "Anyone with training would do it. But not everyone leaves before being thanked." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, "I don't need to be thanked. I'm not thanking you for your benefit." "Then what are you doing here?" The question was direct, not hostile, but not welcoming either. It was a wall he was building between them. She could see it. "I wanted to understand who you are." Marcus turned back to his work. "There's nothing interesting about who I am. I watched 47 seconds of security footage of you responding to my collapse. You didn't hesitate. You didn't check if anyone else would do it first. You just moved. That's muscle memory, not character." "Is it?" She moved closer to the workbench. "Because I've watched hundreds of people with muscle memory. I've worked with military contractors and ER physicians and CPR certified insurance adjusters, and none of them moved the way you did." He set down his tool again, more deliberately this time. "Why does it matter?" "Because you saved my life. And then you disappeared before anyone could ask your name. I saved your life because you needed saving. That's it. That's the whole story." "Then why won't you look at me?" Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her. And Sophia saw something in his expression that she recognized. The same thing she felt. Fear. Of what it meant that they had touched across a moment when she had no control, and he had known exactly what to do. "I have a son," he said quietly. "I know. A son who lost his mother. I can't be the kind of person who runs toward things anymore. I have to be the kind of person who stays, who doesn't leave, who keeps what matters safe. I'm not asking you to run toward anything. Aren't you?" His voice had an edge now. "You tracked down my address. You found my garage. You're standing in my space in a $200,000 car dressed like a board meeting asking me to explain who I am. That's you running toward something. That's you deciding I'm interesting enough to pursue." Silence filled the garage like a living thing. "I can't be that," he continued. "I can't be something that looks interesting to someone like you." and then watch you realize I'm just a man with a 6-year-old and a job that pays bills. That's not why I'm here." "Then why?" And she told him the truth. "Because for 26 years I have been in control of every moment of my life, and in the moment when I had no control, when I was on the floor with no power, no knowledge, no way to fix it, you were certain. You were completely certain that you knew what to do. And I've never felt anything like that. Not in a boardroom, not in a relationship, not anywhere." Marcus said nothing. "You don't have to be anything other than what you are." She continued, "I'm not here to fix you or fix myself through you. I'm here because I watched you work, and I realized that what I've been building my whole life was designed to protect me from exactly the kind of moment where I would need someone like you." He looked at her for a long time. The expression in his face changed, softened, opened slightly. "Leo," he called. "Come here, buddy." Leo appeared from the back room with an orange he had been peeling. He looked at Sophia with the same patient attention he had given her at the airport. Then he smiled. Not a child's social smile. A genuine smile. Like he had decided she was not a threat. Marcus's expression softened even more. "Her name is Sophia," he said to Leo. "She's the person I helped at the airport." Leo looked at Sophia with new understanding. Then he looked at his father. "Is she why you couldn't sleep?" Leo asked simply. Something in Marcus's face broke open. "Yeah, buddy, she is." Sophia felt something shift in her own chest. Because Marcus had been awake thinking about her. Because a 6-year-old had noticed. Because what they had touched in that moment at the airport was still vibrating between them, real and undeniable. "I have a proposal," Sophia said. Her voice was different now, less controlled, more honest. "Something I'm developing for work. Something that would pay fairly if you were willing to help consult." Marcus moved closer to Leo, like he was shielding him or grounding himself. "Sophia, not because I need you to fix anything," she continued, "but because I think what you know matters, and I think you stopped believing that about yourself." The chalk horse on the floor between them, Leo's drawing from earlier, the one that said, "Good horse," suddenly felt like the most honest thing in the room. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured at a metal stool near the bench. "I have a few minutes." And in those few minutes, the entire dynamic shifted. He wasn't just a man she had been hunting. He was a man who had been awake thinking about her. Which meant the connection that had happened on the floor of the lounge had been real. For both of them. Sophia sent the consulting contract 2 weeks later. Marcus did not sign it. She sent 3 follow-up emails. He responded to 0. She was in a board meeting when her assistant texted. Garage address requested 2 more times. So she drove to Ohio on a Friday night. She had a key to the garage now. Marcus had given it to her weeks ago, but she used it respectfully. Knocking first. She found him with Leo eating peanut butter from a jar. It was 8:30 in the evening. They were sitting on an old couch in the corner of the garage, watching the sun set through the bay doors. "You didn't sign the contract," she said. Leo looked at his father to see how he would react. "No," Marcus said. "I didn't." "Why not?" "Because every time I think about that job, I think about Sarah. About the training. About standing in an ER and knowing exactly what to do and her dying anyway." He set down the peanut butter jar. "I can't go back to that world and pretend it didn't break something in me. I can't pretend that knowing the right response keeps people alive." Leo was watching both of them, understanding something. "You can shape the curriculum from here," Sophia said. "You don't have to work for MedAccess. You can consult." "It doesn't matter the structure," Marcus said. "The problem isn't where I work. The problem is that working means remembering, and I've built a life around forgetting. Is that actually better? Sophia asked. Building a life on forgetting. It's worked for 4 years. Has it? She stepped closer. Because you were awake thinking about me. Leo noticed. That doesn't sound like forgetting. His expression hardened. That's not fair. No, she said. It's not. Because what's fair would be if you could meet me and not feel anything. But you did. You feel something. And you're trying to make it go away by refusing to engage. I'm trying to protect my son from someone who will eventually realize I'm not who she thinks I am. I know exactly who you are. You're a man who walked away from his calling because losing people broke you. And instead of processing that, you're hiding in a garage, and the fact that you helped me at the airport. That was a mistake, wasn't it? Because it reminded you of what you gave up. Marcus said nothing. Help me build something that honors what you gave up, Sophia said. Not to rebuild your career, but to process the loss, to make meaning from it, to show Leo that his mother's work still matters. Leo put down the peanut butter jar. You should do it, Dad, Leo said quietly. She's not leaving. She keeps coming back. Marcus looked at his son, then at Sophia. If I do this, he said slowly, it's not because I'm interested in consulting. It's not because of you. It's because Leo deserves to know his mother's legacy mattered. I understand, Sophia said. Do you? Marcus asked. Because if you do, then you understand that this isn't a love story. This is a man processing grief. And that's not romantic. That's just sad. Sophia looked at him for a long moment. The most romantic thing I've ever heard, she said quietly, is someone willing to feel their pain instead of running from it. Someone willing to do hard work instead of hide. Someone willing to say my wife mattered instead of pretending she didn't. So, yes, I understand. And he believed her. So he signed the contract. But there was a weight to his signature now. It wasn't a simple yes. It was a surrender to something he'd been fighting for 4 years. Over the next 6 weeks, the garage transformed. It was no longer just a workspace for Marcus. It became a collaboration. Sophia arrived after work with her laptop and training frameworks and research on bystander intervention and emergency response protocols. She spread documents across the workbench while Marcus reviewed them with meticulous attention to detail. You're teaching people what to do, he told her one evening. His finger traced a section of the training manual. But you're not teaching them how to be the person who acts when everyone else freezes. So teach me, she said. What's the difference? He was quiet for a moment. Then he told her about Sarah again. Not the death, the life. How she used to say that every person you save is someone's child, someone's partner, someone's whole world. How that knowledge was the only thing that kept her from losing her humanity to the work. I spent 4 years forgetting what she believed, Marcus said. And I spent 4 years telling myself that forgetting was protection, but it was actually just cowardice. I was protecting myself from the possibility of being broken again. Sophia did not offer comfort. She offered something better. Collaboration. Together, they rebuilt the curriculum around a philosophy instead of just protocol. Not, here's what to do, but here's why you do it. And here's how to be the person brave enough to do it. Marcus reviewed training materials and flagged the gaps, not with the language of a consultant covering liability, but with the direct specificity of someone who had stood in the spaces where those gaps became consequential. He wrote case studies. He pushed back on jargon. He insisted that every protocol be married to the human story underneath it. His name would not go on the official curriculum. He didn't ask for it to be, but Sophia wrote his fingerprints into every line. Leo watched all of this happening. He watched his father laugh with Sophia. He watched his father open up about his mother in ways he hadn't done in 4 years. He watched his father become someone different. On a Thursday evening, Leo drew a new picture. 3 figures standing together holding hands. One was labeled Dad. One was labeled Sophia. One was labeled Leo. He didn't ask if this was presumptuous. He simply left it on the workbench. When Marcus found it, he sat down on the concrete floor and cried. Quietly, completely, without shame. Sophia found him there. She didn't say anything. She just sat beside him on the concrete floor. In her designer clothes and expensive jewelry, in the space between the circuit boards and the chalk horse, and the evidence of grief being slowly transformed into something else. That's what he thinks, Marcus said. That's what he hopes, Sophia corrected gently. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, she said. Hope is harder. Hope requires believing in something that isn't guaranteed. Marcus looked at her. Is that what this is? Hope. For me, it is, Sophia said. I'm hoping you'll believe that what we're building together is real. I'm hoping you'll stop running from meaning and just let yourself feel it. I'm hoping you'll let me be part of your life instead of just part of your project. He took her hand. It was the first time they had actually touched outside of that moment in the lounge. The first time he had initiated contact. I'm scared, he said. Good, Sophia said. If you weren't scared, you wouldn't be doing the hard thing. By week 6, the training curriculum was ready. It was different from what either of them expected. It wasn't a standard medical protocol. It was a philosophy of response. A curriculum designed to teach ordinary people, administrative staff, facilities workers, anyone, not just how to save a life, but why they were the kind of person who would try. Every module told a story. Sarah's story was woven through it, not as tragedy, as legacy, as a reminder of why meaning matters. The boardroom was all glass and steel, and the kind of furniture that costs more than Marcus makes in 6 months. Sophia stood at the front with the curriculum presentation, but something in her had changed. She was no longer the CEO who performed control. She was a woman who had learned to surrender it. When someone collapses, she began, when anything goes wrong, there's no hierarchy. There's only the choice to act or not act. She walked the board through the curriculum, not as a training initiative, but as a philosophy. She showed them case studies, fictional but built on real moments. She showed them the research on bystander intervention, on response times, on the difference between knowing what to do and being brave enough to do it. Most of you will never have to use this training, she told them, but someone in this organization will. And when that moment comes, what you will have done today could mean the difference between a person living and a person dying. Margaret Hartwell sat at the far end of the table. She listened without expression. But when Sophia spoke about Sarah, about a woman who believed that every person you save is someone's whole world, Margaret's expression shifted. When the presentation ended, the board voted. It wasn't unanimous, but it was clear. 4-2 in favor. Margaret voted yes. After the others filed out, Margaret stayed. You're in love with him, Margaret said. It wasn't a question. Sophia set down her presentation materials. I don't know him well enough to be in love with him. That's not true, Margaret said. You know exactly how he responds in crisis. You know what matters to him. You know why he hides. That's knowing someone. That's the deepest kind of knowing. Sophia was quiet. "What are you going to do about it?" Margaret asked. "I don't know," Sophia said. "He's protecting his son. He's processing grief. He's only here because he wants to honor his wife's memory. Maybe that's exactly why he's the right person," Margaret said. "Someone who loves the people he loves that much. Someone willing to feel his pain instead of run from it. That's someone worth waiting for." Margaret stepped closer to her daughter. "You were always so sure you could control everything?" Margaret said. "I watched you as a child, always needing to know what would happen next, always preparing for every possibility. But love doesn't work that way. You can't control it. You can only choose it." "What if he doesn't choose me?" Sophia asked. And the question was so vulnerable that Margaret pulled her daughter into an embrace, for the first time in years. "Then at least you'll know you were brave enough to ask," Margaret said. "And that matters more than the answer." That evening, Sophia drove to the garage without calling ahead. She found Marcus there with Leo, the curriculum printed and bound, sitting on the workbench. "It passed," she said. "The board approved it. All of it." Leo jumped up and down. Marcus looked at the bound curriculum like it was something he couldn't quite believe was real. "Your name should be on this," Sophia said. "I want to go back to the board and ask for an amendment. I want people to know that you shaped this, that your wife's philosophy is at the heart of it, that you didn't hide from your grief. You transformed it." Marcus picked up the bound curriculum, looked at it from different angles, like he was trying to understand it from all sides. "There's something else," Sophia said. "Something that's separate from the curriculum." She stepped closer. "I love you." And it came out exactly the way the moment required. Simple, true, no decoration. Marcus looked up from the curriculum, set it down slowly. "I know," he said. It was almost a smile. "I've known since you showed up at my garage in a Tesla asking me to explain who I am." "Is that a problem?" she asked. "No," he said. "It's exactly what I needed. Someone who would show up. Someone who wouldn't give up. Someone who could see past my hiding to the person I was before Sarah died." "I don't want you to be that person," Sophia said. "I want you to be the person you are now, the person who hides and grieves and loves his son and helps when it matters." He moved closer. "Then that's who I'll be," he said. "As long as you stay being someone brave enough to let me be broken and healing at the same time." They kissed there, between the circuit boards and the chalk horse, and the bound curriculum that had Sarah's fingerprints on every page. Leo, watching from the workbench, smiled. The first cohort of the First Response Training Program launched on a Tuesday morning in early spring. The classroom wasn't a boardroom. It was a community center, open to anyone from med-access, operations, facilities, administrative staff, maintenance workers, 47 people, some skeptical, some curious, most uncertain about why their employer thought they needed to know what to do if someone collapsed. Sophia stood in front of them, but she was different from the woman who stood in the boardroom. She was vulnerable. She was real. In this room are people who will probably never need to know how to perform CPR, she began. Most of you will go through your entire career without ever finding someone collapsed on the floor. She paused. But some of you will. And when that moment comes, everything you know about hierarchy and rules and waiting for permission will be less true than the thing you're about to learn. She taught them about airway, about pulse, about the window of time when knowing what to do matters. She taught them that there's almost always something a person can do if they know what to do, and that knowing is available to anyone who decides to acquire it. She said. For the first time, she told them about what happened at the airport. She didn't name Marcus, but she told them about the woman who collapsed, about the man who knew what to do, about the moment when control stripped away, and all that mattered was someone knowing what to do. That man was trained as an emergency responder years ago, Sophia said. But he stopped doing that work because he experienced loss, because he thought that knowing what to do wasn't enough. And he spent 4 years in hiding, believing that safety was better than meaning. She paused, and then he helped me, and he remembered that his wife, who was also a paramedic, used to say that every person you save is someone's child, someone's partner, someone's whole world, and that knowing this was the only way to not lose your humanity to the work. In the back of the room, Marcus Hale sat with Leo on his lap. Sophia hadn't asked him to come. He came anyway. When Sophia spoke about Sarah, Marcus looked down at Leo and saw him watching his father's face with the kind of attention children give to moments they understand are important. "Is that the lady you kept thinking about?" Leo asked quietly. "Yes," Marcus whispered back. And Sophia, without breaking her presentation, without losing her composure, felt his presence and understood exactly why he was there. He was honoring Sarah. He was telling Leo, "This is how we make meaning from loss." He was showing his son, "Your mother's work is still saving people." When the training ended, the participants filed out. Some approached Sophia with questions. Most left quietly, understanding that something had shifted in them, the kind of shift that happens when someone shows you that you're capable of more than you thought. When everyone else was gone, Marcus approached her. Leo was with Margaret in the hallway, getting water and crackers. "You mentioned me," Marcus said. "I mentioned someone trained who didn't stay in the field," Sophia said. "I didn't mention your name." "He would have understood anyway," Marcus said. Leo understood. "Why are you here?" Marcus looked at the empty classroom for a moment. "Because Sarah used to say what you said," he said. "That every person you save is someone's whole world. And I spent 4 years believing that if I couldn't save everyone, then it didn't matter to save anyone. That the work was just a reminder of failure." He turned back to Sophia. "And then you collapsed. And I moved without thinking. And I remembered that Sarah was right. It matters. It all matters. Even if you can't save everyone. Even if knowing what to do isn't enough. It still matters that you try." Sophia stepped closer. "I love you," she said again. Not a question. A statement. A commitment. "I know," Marcus said. "I've loved you since the moment you locked eyes with me in the terminal before you collapsed. I just didn't know how to trust that love without running from it." He took her hand. "I'm not running anymore," he said. A week later, the official curriculum was released with Marcus's name on it, not as a consultant, as a co-creator, as someone whose expertise and whose grief, and whose wife's philosophy shaped every line. The press release mentioned Sarah. It mentioned that the curriculum was created in partnership with emergency response specialists and designed to bridge the gap between technical knowledge and field-level competence. It also mentioned Marcus Cole, who lost his wife 4 years ago, and who decided to transform his grief into a gift. Leo read part of it aloud to Marcus. "It says Mom is in the book," Leo said. "She is." Marcus confirmed. She always was. A month later, Sophia was moving out of her penthouse downtown. Not because Marcus asked, not because she was giving up her career, but because they had decided that the garage, the place where chalk horses were drawn and meaning was made, was more their home than any expensive address could be. They weren't married, not yet. They were still figuring out what they were building, what it meant to create a family that included grief and love, and a 6-year-old's wisdom. and a woman's transformation, and a man's redemption. Leo had drawn another picture. The four of them, Leo and Marcus and Sophia, and a figure with wings that he said was Mom, watching from her important place. The drawing hung on the garage wall, next to the chalk horse, next to the framed curriculum that now included Marcus's name, and a dedication to Sarah Cole, paramedic, wife, mother, believer that every person you save is someone's whole world. Margaret visited every Saturday. She and Marcus had developed an unexpected friendship. She brought groceries. She listened to Leo's stories. She watched her daughter move through the world with less armor and more authenticity than Margaret had ever seen. "You're happy," Margaret observed one Saturday, watching Sophia laugh at something Marcus said. "I'm terrified," Sophia corrected. "But yes, I'm happy too. Terrified of what?" "Of losing him," Sophia said simply. "Of things changing. Of Leo getting hurt. Of me not being enough." "Those are all possible," Margaret said. "But they were always possible. The difference is now you're not trying to prevent them. You're just living with them." Sophia nodded. "That's braver," Margaret said. On a spring evening, Sophia was working on her laptop in the corner of the garage, while Marcus reviewed training materials. Leo was drawing. The radio was playing something soft. It was ordinary and unremarkable, and absolutely full of grace. Leo looked up from his drawing. "Is this forever?" he asked. It was the kind of question children ask when they need reassurance about the permanence of things that feel temporary. Marcus set down his materials. Sophia closed her laptop. "We're not going anywhere," Sophia said. "But people always leave," Leo said. The kind of simple wisdom that only a 6-year-old who had lost a parent could speak. Marcus and Sophia exchanged a look. "Some people do leave," Marcus said gently. "That's true. But Sophia is choosing to stay, and I'm choosing to stay, and we're choosing to stay together. That's different from leaving." "How is it different?" Leo asked. "Because leaving is something that happens to you," Sophia said. "Staying is something you decide every day. Every morning when you wake up, you choose it again." Leo considered this. "Will you choose it tomorrow?" he asked Sophia. "Yes," Sophia said. "And the next day, and the next day. As long as you and your dad want me to." "Forever?" Leo asked. Sophia looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. "Forever?" Sophia said. "Or as close to forever as we can get." Leo returned to his drawing. He added Sophia to the picture now. Not separate, but part of the family, part of the story, part of the forever. That night, after Leo was asleep, Marcus and Sophia sat on the concrete floor of the garage. The chalk horse was still there, slightly faded now, but still visible. The curriculum sat on the shelf, already being taught to the second cohort. Sarah's photograph, one that Marcus finally felt ready to display, hung on the wall. "I never thought I'd be here," Marcus said. "Where?" Sophia asked. "Happy," he said. "After Sarah, I thought that part of my life was over, that I could only ever be functional, a good father, a competent worker, but not actually happy." Sophia took his hand. "You're allowed to be happy," she said. "Sarah would want that." "I know," Marcus said. "That's what took me so long to believe. The chalk horse on the floor, the curriculum on the shelf, the photograph on the wall, Sarah's name in every line they had written together, her philosophy living on in the people they had trained, her son secure in the knowledge that his mother mattered, that her work was still saving people. And in the corner of a converted garage, a man who had learned that honoring grief doesn't mean staying dead, learned to live, A woman who learned that control is less important than connection, learned to surrender. And a boy who had lost his mother learned that families aren't always what you expect, but they can be exactly what you need. That was the moment everything changed, not with drama or fanfare, but with the quiet certainty of people choosing each other, every single day, in a chalk circle on a concrete floor, in a curriculum that saved lives, in the eyes of a child who finally felt safe enough to hope. And in that moment, Marcus understood something that Sarah had known all along. That meaning doesn't come from preventing loss. It comes from transforming it, from taking the worst thing that ever happened and turning it into a gift for someone else. He looked at Sophia. She was already looking at him. Leo was asleep in the back room. Sarah's photograph watched from the wall, and the chalk horse stood eternal. "I'm sorry it took me so long," Marcus said. "Sorry for what?" Sophia asked. "To stop running, to let you in, to believe that happiness was possible." "You got there," Sophia said. "That's what matters." And he had, against all odds, against every fear he carried, against the weight of grief that had tried to crush him. He had. And in doing so, he had shown his son that broken people can become whole again, that loss can become meaning, that sometimes the greatest love is not the love that prevents pain, but the love that walks through it anyway. The chalk horse remained,